Look at a photograph from 1950. A man standing on a Brooklyn corner. He looks 45, maybe 50. Worn face, deep lines, tired eyes. Then you read the caption. He is 28 years old. How is that possible? Why do our grandparents look older at 30 than we do at 50? Was it the water? The stress? Or is something stranger going on? Today we uncover why New Yorkers aged so fast and what that reveals about how we live now. Work in old New York was not performed in ergonomic chairs under fluorescent lights. It was performed with hands and backs and legs that never stopped moving. Construction workers hauled materials up scaffolding in summer heat. Factory workers stood for 12-hour shifts breathing air thick with dust and chemicals. Dock workers loaded cargo until their spines curved permanently forward. This kind of labor does not just tire you, it transforms you. Hands thicken and crack, skin weathers and toughens. Posture shifts to accommodate pain that never fully goes away. A 30-year-old who has spent 15 years doing physical work carries those years visibly. His body has been used in ways that age it far beyond the calendar. The comfortable office worker of today reaches middle age with hands that have never known real wear. The difference shows. Sunscreen did not exist in any practical form until the 1970s, and even then, almost nobody used it. New Yorkers spent their lives under the same sun we hide from today, but without any protection. Construction workers baked on rooftops. Mothers pushed strollers through July without hats. Children played outside from morning until dark, summer after summer, their skin absorbing damage that would not show up for decades. Except it did show up, faster than we expect. Sun damage ages skin more aggressively than almost anything else. The deep wrinkles, the leathery texture, the spots and discoloration that we associate with old age, much of it is accumulated sun exposure. Our grandparents had 30 or 40 years of unprotected sun by the time they reached middle age. We slather on SPF 50 before walking to the subway. The difference between their faces and ours starts with something as simple as lotion they never knew they needed. Cigarettes were not a habit in old New York. They were a lifestyle, a social ritual, an accessory as common as a wristwatch. Men smoked at work, at home, at dinner, in bed. Women smoked at parties, in offices, while pregnant. Children grew up breathing secondhand smoke so constantly that clean air would have seemed strange. What does decades of smoking do to a face? It starves the skin of oxygen. It breaks down collagen faster than aging alone. It creates those vertical lines around the mouth, that gray undertone to the complexion, that hollowness around the eyes. A pack-a-day smoker at 35 could easily pass for 50. And in old New York, pack-a-day was modest. The cigarettes alone could explain years of apparent aging that had nothing to do with actual years. Modern stress is real, but modern stress comes with escapes. Vacations, therapy, meditation apps, sick days. The understanding that mental health matters and that breaks are necessary. Old New York offered none of that. You worked until you could not work anymore. You worried about money constantly because there was no safety net beneath you. You carried anxiety in your chest every single day and called it normal because everyone around you carried the same weight. Chronic stress ages the body at a cellular level. It shortens telomeres. It increases cortisol. It disrupts sleep and digestion and immune function. The New Yorker of 1950 lived inside stress that never released, that had no name, that was simply the texture of existence. That kind of pressure leaves marks, not just on the mind, but on the face, the posture, the eyes. Stress without relief ages you in ways that comfort never will. What did your grandfather put on his face in the morning? Soap and water? Maybe a razor? That was it. The concept of skincare as a daily practice moisturizers and serums and retinols and eye creams, none of that existed for ordinary people. Skin was just skin. You washed it and forgot about it. Today, the skincare industry is worth hundreds of billions of dollars because we have learned that skin responds to care. Hydration slows wrinkles. Certain ingredients boost collagen. Sun protection prevents damage. We have tools our grandparents never imagined. They faced the same aging process with nothing but genetics and luck. Some aged gracefully anyway, most did not. The playing field was not level, and their faces showed the disadvantage. Look at how young people dressed in old photographs. Men in suits and hats that made 25 look 40. Women in dresses and hairstyles borrowed from their mothers. The clothing of old New York was not designed to flatter youth. It was designed to project maturity, respectability, seriousness. A teenager in 1950 wanted to look older because looking young meant looking unimportant. So they dressed up. They styled their hair like adults. They carried themselves with formality that added years to their appearance. Today we have the opposite instinct. 50-year-olds wear sneakers and jeans. Casual is king. Youth is the aspiration at every age. The clothes alone could add a decade to faces in old photographs, not because people were older, but because looking older was the goal. People ate what was available and what they could afford. Nutrition labels did not exist. Vitamins were barely understood. The connection between diet and aging was not part of public knowledge. You ate to fill your stomach, not to nourish your cells. This meant diets heavy in processed meats, refined flour, sugar, and salt. Light on vegetables, variety, and the micronutrients we now know support cellular health. Deficiencies were common and often invisible until they became serious. Skin, hair, teeth, all of it reflects nutritional status. A body running on bread and coffee and fatty meat ages differently than a body fed with intention. Our grandparents did not have the information. Their faces paid the price. How much did a factory worker in 1940 sleep? As much as he could between shifts, which was never enough. Tenement apartments were loud. Families were large. Space was tight. The idea of 8 uninterrupted hours in a quiet, dark room was fantasy for most working New Yorkers. Sleep is when the body repairs itself. Skin regenerates. Stress hormones reset. Damage from the day gets processed and healed. Chronic sleep deprivation accelerates aging in ways that show up quickly on the face. Dark circles, dull skin, premature wrinkles. The exhausted face of old New York was not a style. It was a symptom of lives that never included enough rest. Dental care in old New York was primitive by modern standards and completely inaccessible for the poor. Cavities went unfilled. Infections went untreated. Teeth were pulled rather than saved because pulling was cheaper. By 30, many working-class New Yorkers had already lost multiple teeth. By 50, full dentures were common. Nothing ages a face faster than missing teeth. The jawline collapses. The cheeks sink. The mouth changes shape. Even in photographs where you cannot see the teeth directly, you can see their absence in the structure of the face. Modern dentistry preserves teeth for decades longer than old methods allowed. That preservation keeps faces looking younger in ways we rarely consider. Not everything was biology. Some of it was technology. Old cameras and old film were not kind. Harsh lighting created deep shadows that emphasized every line and wrinkle. Black and white photography stripped away the warmth that color adds to skin. Long exposure times meant holding still with serious expressions, none of the relaxed smiles that soften modern portraits. The same person photographed with 1950 technology and modern smartphone technology would look 10 years older in the old photo. We compare our filtered, flattering, high-resolution images to their stark, unforgiving portraits, and assume the difference is age. Some of it is, but some of it is just the camera adding years that were never really there. At the end of the day, old New Yorkers looked older because they were older in every way except the calendar. A body that starts working at 14, smokes for 20 years, sleeps 5 hours a night, eats poorly, worries constantly, and bakes in the sun without protection is not the same biological age as a body that does none of those things. Biological age and chronological age are different measurements, and old New York pushed biological age far ahead of the calendar. We look younger now because we live softer lives. That is not an insult. It is just true. We have protections and knowledge and comforts that previous generations could not imagine. The price they paid for harder lives showed up on their faces. The price we pay for easier lives shows up elsewhere, in ways we are only beginning to understand. A 20-year-old in 1950 was not a 20-year-old by today's standards. He was a man, fully formed. Responsibilities stacked on his shoulders like bricks. By 20, most New Yorkers had already been working for years. Many were married, some had children, a few had already buried parents and taken over as head of household. Adolescence as we know it barely existed. There was childhood, and then there was adulthood, with almost nothing in between. You did not spend your 20s finding yourself. You spent your 20s paying rent, raising kids, and figuring out how to keep everyone fed. That weight showed up on faces. Responsibility carves lines that leisure never touches. When life demands that you become an adult at 16, your face gets the message early. So the next time you see a photograph of a 30-year-old from 1950 who looks 50, do not just marvel at the difference, understand it. That face is a map of a harder world. Sun and smoke and labor and stress and poverty and sleepless nights, all written in lines and shadows. We look younger now because we have earned it through science and comfort, but they looked older because they earned it too, through survival. Which face tells the more honest story? And if your grandparents looked older than you at the same age, what did they go through that you will never have to? Tell me in the comments.